So first of all, thank you for doing this. You're in the middle of a nationwide tour, speaking live before big audiences, and there's a Q&A component in every gig, every performance, and you're getting questions directly from young men. What kind of questions are you getting consistently?
A lot of them around directionlessness. I'm out of full-time education. I'm in my early 20s, or I've just left a relationship, or I've worked for a while and got myself to a state of success that felt unfulfilling to me, and I don't know where to go. And I think that this sort of speaks to the lost archetypes, the train tracks, and the examples that would have previously been laid out for young men. And directionlessness is a huge one. Trying to find a balance between drive to improve and gratitude and self-love for the moment. The sort of you are enough versus hustle bro blend. Guys want to be able to go and conquer. They want to really achieve things in the world. But also they realize that if they're permanently looking over the shoulder of the present moment, waiting to see what comes next, they might miss their lives. You know, there's this idea called the delayed happiness hypothesis, which is basically that as people move through life, they always promise that happiness will arrive once I have got the graduation, once I have got the next job, once I have got the girlfriend, once I have got the house, once I've paid off the mortgage. And what you realize is that this idyll that you are running toward is actually your death, and you've just speed ran your entire life. And I think that they're becoming increasingly more aware of that, which is good. I think it is good. A balance between wanting to be more and being enough already. And this is a tension that exists inside the mind of everyone, but I think men especially. And those are two big challenges. I'm stuck in terms of direction. I don't know where to go. And I'm trying to balance high standards with self-love.
I cannot help but go to talk about the question of what is beneath all of this for men is the question, what are we for? Mm-hmm. Do we just make that up? Or is there actually some real reason that we exist? And are we actually for something? Is there some architecture beyond us that dictates what human flourishing looks like? Or is it literally totally arbitrary? Mm-hmm. Does everybody make up their own path? I'm looking for purpose by doing this, and he's looking for purpose doing that. And there's no like rules, there's no mooring into anything, just literally it's the Wild West. Everybody just try to have purpose, try to have meaning, literally just do whatever you want and just see how it works out. Is that the type of scenario that we're really in? Or are men for something? Like by God, like I'm coming at this as a Christian and I'm saying, I'm hearing what he's saying here and I'm like, oh man, he's talking about that kind of dynamic tension between having stick-to-itiveness and having ambition and having goals, and at the same time, you know, having self-love or being like okay with yourself, and there's a push and a pull there, and all of this I keep thinking I don't think it's going quite deep enough if you're not asking, do I exist for some reason? Is there an intended purpose for my existence? Mm-hmm. I feel like with that question left unanswered, that tension will A, always be in place, and B, it will always be illusory in some capacity.
Yeah, absolutely. So why do we exist? Like, why are we here? Like, I think his diagnosis is spot on, like in a sense of men are noticing this directionlessness, this purposelessness, but do I make up my own direction or is direction given to me? And I do think that's worth exploring, obviously, but I actually really appreciate that he's saying, hey, men are recognizing that I just feel directionlessness. I don't know where to go or what to do. I've graduated from college. I took the script. They said, go to school, work hard, get some good grades, get your degree, maybe get your master's. Now what? I get a career for the next 30, 40 years, but that might feel purposeless. Mm-hmm. We were at FAU yesterday, and I spoke to a student who came up to me, and he's about to get his master's, mm-hmm. and I think it's in mathematics. And he's like, but I don't want to do anything in mathematics. So I just spent basically 6 years, but he did it faster, but spent 6 years pursuing this degree in math, and I don't even want to do that now. And how many people find themselves in that spot? And I do think part of this battle or struggle is going, okay, but God, what is that thing you've made me for? And then first and foremost, I'm made by him and for him. Okay, it's like you're made for God.
Yeah.
But then like, okay, but how do I practically like tap into what's like that vocation or the majority of my time will be spent doing what? I don't know. I think that's what we kind of got to get to, but
I think it's sort of, I think we should keep playing this.
Yeah.
I guess just one last really quick thing is, if you think about something like this is it's a glass, and it actually was designed for certain purposes and not for others. And if you use it as a shovel, it could work, but it won't work as good as a shovel. And if you try to use a shovel to drink out of, it could work, but it won't work as well as a glass. That's because there's actually an intention behind the formation and the creation of the thing. And that's kind of the point that I'm getting to is we actually do have the freedom to apply ourselves to all sorts of different ends, but I think the question needs to be asked and answered. But is there an intended purpose for our existence? Not just what purpose do we derive or what purpose do we set for ourselves, but is there actually some intended purpose for our very existence? I think that question. If the answer to that is yes, and if the explanation of that answer is yes, God, like yes, we're actually created because we're wanted. We exist because we're wanted. We're created to know God, to be known by God, to glorify God, to understand God through every other dimension and aspect of our life, from relationships to beauty to goodness. Like everything is actually a reflection of the great knowing of our Creator. If that is the true answer to why are we intended, then it's not limiting, because it's still, in a sense, the Wild West. There's so many different paths that you can take in life. There's so many different things that you can do. But beneath any choice that you make will be an understanding that there actually is an intended purpose for your existence.
Yeah.
And that is a totally game-changing reality, because it means whether I'm a lawyer or a doctor, I'm to be that thing as a reflection of my Creator and unto the glory of my Creator, and in a way that is actually compatibilistically united with my Creator. Like, this is really hard. What do I do here? So there's always going to be that vertical relationship informing whatever the work is, or whatever like the thing that a man is setting themselves to do.
That's good.
And it's just a fundamentally different paradigm if it's true. I'm obviously, as a Christian, I'm saying this is true. This is actually the reality that we're in. But if you just you can keep a lot of the infrastructure in place that like Chris is talking about, but I really think without that linchpin idea, you're going to see what we have already seen played out so many times already, where how did he put it, the delayed happiness hypothesis is a very true hypothesis. Yes. Why is it then when the people who actually get everything that they want are not happy? Why do people climb to the top of the pyramid and jump off? Whether it's Robin Williams, whether it's Philip Seymour Hoffman, whether it's on and on and on. We see so many examples of people actually fulfilling their dreams and finding themselves wanting. And I think that, I'm going to say that the delayed happiness hypothesis is very true, but also the God hypothesis, as you exist for an intended purpose, is true. And I think that those two will work together to tell you the complete picture, that like we can stuff our lives filled with goals, and if we don't achieve those goals, we might actually be better off in the sense, well, I don't know if we'll be better off or worse off, but like if you don't achieve your goals, you will have the illusion ever before you. If I just get to the next step, then I'll be happy. If I just go on that one more vacation, then I'll be happy. If I just, the next date with the right girl at the right time, then I'll be happy. We can always have something before us that sustains the illusion, is what I'm trying to say. But the people who actually get everything that their heart desires and find themselves still unsatisfied are the ones who, before them, the illusion is broken and they're facing reality, which is that they aren't happy if they're not unified to the source, to the Creator, to the architect. So that's my point. So that was way more long-winded than I thought it would be. But I can't help but think of that in light of this conversation of how then shall we live? What then shall we do? Yes. What is our purpose? What are we for? It's like, that's a huge question. Yes. That's maybe like the question.
Yes. It feels very ecclesiastical, like the book Ecclesiastes, where, not the church, Lord, but the book, the Ecclesiastes, because it begins with meaningless, everything's meaningless. Vanity of vanity, all is vanity. And I do feel like he's kind of bringing this up. Like, men have this weird itch, Like, why do I have this itch I can't scratch? Like, what is this? I want direction, I want purpose, but I don't know what that is. And I think I appreciate that he's kind of bringing up the proverb issue, the wisdom issue of what are we here for? Why am I here? What is the purpose of man? If I make up my own purpose, will that satisfy me? Or is there a purpose outside of myself I need to tap into and discover? And I appreciate this.
I do too.
Has it occurred that there's a connection between these phenomena?
Which ones?
Well, that maybe men are in a dire state because they have been browbeaten and demoralized and attacked for their immutable qualities that they can't control, that they were born with. And this has gone on for like 40 years, and all it has done is destroyed men and make women crazy. Like the whole thing is just terrible. It's like the worst thing that's happened ever in the West. So like maybe there's a reason men have no direction and are addicted to porn and a million other things, because they're told constantly that their lives don't matter.
Yeah, well, I think we've seen a lot of structural changes, and what's really interesting is how this is coming to land existentially, psychologically, like karmically within men. But the structural changes are what I think kicked a lot of this going. So education and employment are the two big ones for men. In education, it seems like the current education system was always set up in a manner that women, girls were going to overperform in. They had the brakes put on them for a while with regards to encouragement and their acceptance toward university. Girls are better to sit down. They're good highlighter people, and they're more conscientious than boys are on average. They're less rambunctious. They're good for if you need to sit quietly in a classroom for 6 hours a day. Yes. They crush it. They absolutely crush it.
More obedience, less creativity.
Yeah, and less disruption as well, which is a huge big deal, especially when there are 3 times as many female fighter pilots in the US Air Force as there are male kindergarten teachers in the United States. 2% of kindergarten teachers are men. It's about 7% of fighter pilots are female. And this means that being able to deal with the disruptions of young boys is tough. What this has resulted in is girls starting to outstrip in terms of performance boys. So since Title IX was introduced 50 years ago, just to get more girls into higher education, the gender gap between men and women then is smaller than it is now, but it was in the other direction.
Yeah.
So there are fewer men going to college than women now than 50 years ago when Title IX was introduced. So women have just blown through the glass ceiling that was supposed to be there.
And if you break it out by graduation rates, it's overwhelmingly female.
7 times more men than women dropped out of college during COVID.
Right.
So all of that together means you have 2 women for every 1 man completing a 4-year US college degree. Like,
is that true? It's 2 to 1.
2 to 1. We're almost there. Some campuses, it's nearly 3 to 1 in terms of the ratio. So you have education, more women than men completing a 4-year US college degree by a big distance. And that's going to just continue ticking up. You then look at what's happened with employment. That's education. You look at what's happened with employment. Well, we've moved from a brawn-based to a brain-based economy. It's become increasingly credentialized, which means that the education piece is now more important than ever before. So you have girls overperforming relatively in education, and then moving into an employment world, which also kind of needs more administrative know-how. Yes, some assertiveness that guys have still got and some disagreeability is good for getting you promotions. But between the ages of 21 and 29, women on average earn £1,111 more than men do. So they're out-earning men too. Not only are they educating, they're out-earning men. And this sort of all together, the structural changes of women in education and employment, plus welfare state assisting single mothers particularly, has meant that guys go, well, what's my place? What's my role now? I feel surplus to requirement.
And women say, I'm not going to marry a man who makes less than I do. They don't want to marry men who make less than they do. There's a million studies on this, and it's noticeable just from talking to women. They don't want to marry a man shorter than them, and they don't want to marry a man who makes less. Sorry.
There's an idea called the tall girl hypothesis, which I bro scienced into existence about 4 years ago. I got in a lot of trouble when I first started talking about this. So if you were a 6'3" woman, typically on average, women want to date a guy taller than them. You're looking at pro athletes. right? If you want to date, if you're a 6'3" woman, you want to wear heels at your wedding, like you're looking at dudes that are 6'7", like you're looking at pro athletes. The point here is if you are a taller woman and want to date up and across, there is a smaller cohort of men for you to be able to pick from.
Yes.
Socioeconomically, over the last 50 years, women have become taller. Socioeconomically, they have grown.
Exactly.
Right? Men have stagnated, and in some cases, they've actually gotten a little bit shorter. What this means is, if women on average want to date a man who is as educated or more than them, and as wealthy or more than them, but women are now out earning and out educating men who have an ever increasing group of high performing women competing for ever decreasing group of ultra high performing men.
Yep.
Now, these guys have got unlimited options. So they can use and discard these women as they need.
Yes.
These women feel like most guys don't meet their standards, or like the guys that they do meet are cads and treat them horribly.
What's a cad?
I don't know. Some British term.
Okay. We should pause here because I think we probably both have a lot of thoughts.
Yeah. Good.
At this point. There is a poem called The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock. That's a famous poem in British, English classes. You'll read it by T.S. Eliot.
Okay.
And there's an amazing description inside of that poem of these middle-aged men. Actually, the whole poem kind of orients around this idea. In the room, the women come and go, speaking of Michelangelo, and the men are described as being out on this balcony, leaning over the edge, longing for something. I believe the odd description that it gives is longing to be like a crab scuttling along the floor of the ocean. You're like, what the heck is this? What is he talking about here? But he's describing, and this is going back all the way to, I think this was the 20s, 1920s. He's describing this broad cultural sense of what do we do? Where do we go from here? The 20s were very much like today. They're in the sense that all of a sudden there was a level of decadence, there was a level of opulence, there was a level of, prior to the Great Depression, financial security. Everything seemed to have already been done. All of the work seemed to have been done. All of the frontiers seemed to have been conquered. All of the continents seemed to have been explored. Everything seemed to have been done. And now, what do? I was reading about Magellan. That sounded awesome. I was reading about Columbus. That sounded awesome. What do? Sit at your desk. Nowadays, I'll bring it to the future. Sit at your desk, look at your screen, push your buttons, be a good boy. Sit in your class, fulfill your homework assignment, do your to-dos, be a good boy. And Prufrock, T.S. Eliot was getting at the same idea all the way back then. Where is the land to till? Where is the thing to conquer? Where is the quest? Where's the adventure? Where's the joy? Well, they're short sleeve up of the building, looking out to the distant horizon, longing for something, wishing that they could be as free as a crab scuttling along the seafloor. Something has changed, and I like the way he put it, that there has been a paradigm shift from a brawn-based economy to a brain-based economy. That's a funny way to put it, but that's kind of the idea. Obviously not insinuating that men are only brawn and women are only brains, but a sense of the attributes of men that God has given us, which are physical, which are, we like to work and sweat and be active and also have like real missions that are not just simulations of missions, but like real missions, real quests, real adventures. We don't really need that anymore in that sense, but you can go on an adventure in your video game. Well, go figure, why are video games so huge for men? Because it gives you again an illusion of a fulfillment of a baked-in desire that you have, but it's a complete, I mean, in my opinion, sorry, anybody who loves video games, I shouldn't say complete, I think it is largely a waste of time. I think it is largely the Matrix. I think it is largely a distraction, but I wouldn't even blame someone who is addicted to video games in this, like, fully, in the sense that I totally get it. I understand why you're drawn into that world where you actually are able to scratch those itches that you just don't have any outlet for in the modern world. Yeah. The modern world just doesn't give you an adventure. It just tells you sit in your chair, be a good boy, collect your check, and that's it. You're like, there's no story to this. There's literally no there's no like mission, there's no story to this.
Yeah. Well, I think what Chris was describing to me was basically this question of how did we get here? How did we get to this place where men do feel directionless and purposeless? And I do want to kind of explore that, because how did we get here? You know, that we've really been deconstructing manhood for decades now, right? And I even think like the decade I grew up, like 90s, and like the dads on TV, there's like sometimes there's good ones, but it's like the Homer Simpson, the Al Bundy, it's the lazy, the clown, the one that's always messing things up. He's not reliable. He's getting fired from his job. Like it was always like manhood was such a joke. And it's sad that the last couple of decades we've had that, or it's been the story of your dad is there to kind of keep you from your dreams. Your dad exists, it's Little Mermaid. Your dad is there to kind of keep you from what's really out there. And he's trying to restrain you, restrict you, and break free from your parents, break free from your dad. And it's weird. I do think like there's men who go, no, I have these desires in me to protect, to provide, to lead, to shelter, to help, to serve. But then I'm told that is toxic, or I'm told that that's restraining or holding other people back. And, he kind of brought up the wage gap that's been shifting. He brought up the education gap. I thought that was a stat I didn't know, which was when Title IX was introduced. As of right now, there's less men going to university than when Title IX was introduced for women. So you kind of look at this like overcorrection now, where as far as going to school or making money or providing, like all of those things that men want to do innately, again, they've either been made caricatures of them, where like, I don't want to be a man that comes across like this, like overbearing. So I don't know. I think we got to this place because I think the stories we've been telling have not been good stories. The stories of manhood, the stories of adventure, the stories of providing or protecting. It's weird. The stories that we've been telling ourselves have been just counter manhood. And so I do appreciate he's kind of bringing up like this idea of this generation is looking for direction. Now I would say like, where do you go? Everyone goes for direction. So I think that's like where I want to more get at is where do we go? Do young men turn to TV, a book, pornography? Like what are men turning to be fulfilled and satisfied? Is it their professor? Like who are they going to say, give me direction for my life? And I do feel like there's this drive happening in young men to want more.
Yes.
And I'm excited because I actually think there's men starting to wake up to everything I've been fed is not really fulfilling me. Like it's not satisfying me. So I don't know. I actually feel like we're on like the verge of men waking up to like true reality, to why they are, why they do exist, why God made them, why God placed them here, that those desires they have are not bad, that they should not suppress them. They should actually like pursue those desires a little bit more. I think his diagnosis is partially right. But I don't know if there's anything he missed or what do you...
I think the final frontier is spiritual. And it's real. I don't think it's space. I don't think it's underwater. I don't think it's any other hidden continent. I don't think it's going past the ice wall to the edge, beyond the edge of the flat earth. I think that there's all kinds of different fantasies and scenarios and real, things that excite people and all the stories titillate that part of us that wants some real adventure, some final frontier. Why are all of like the male stories filled with that? I think there's a reason for that.
Yeah.
And I actually think that the final frontier is spiritual. And it's not an illusion. In fact, it's the one thing that's not an illusion. There is actually a spiritual battle of good and evil that is actually taking place on planet Earth right now. There is actually a kingdom of darkness. There's actually a kingdom of light. And any man who exists on this planet is, according to God's design, intended to be taken out of the kingdom of darkness and brought into the kingdom of light in order to be an ambassador for Christ, in order to bring other people out of darkness and bring them into the light. So the ultimate rescue mission is real.
Yeah.
The ultimate quest is real. The ultimate adventure is real. And this is not spiritual bypassing. This is not wish fulfillment. This is not any of that. This is what is actually underneath all the problems on the news. This is beneath the political. This is beneath the cultural. This is the real cosmic battle of good and evil. That again, whether you're aware of it or not, it's happening all around you. I think if a person who's bored with life will realize that, and will realize, like Neo at the start of the Matrix, you're plugged in, you're inside of the illusion. But there is a purpose for you, which is to see reality as it is, and then to be used once you have done so as a force for good to help other people escape the illusion. That's what I think can allow someone to work their 9-to-5 job and not be depressed.
Yeah.
To, be exhausted at the end of the day and come home to their family and not be depressed.
Yes.
Because beneath every single what would otherwise be a mundane action, there is now it is now a part of eternity. It is now a part of spiritual warfare, and it's lasting and it's real, right? So you're not just disassociating through Netflix, right? You're like, if you're now, I'm saying ideally, a Christian man should be watching Netflix and thinking and being equipped by it, you should be thinking Christianly. You should have your antenna out. That was important.
Yeah.
I noticed that. Like, you even brought up Homer Simpson as an example. Like, we should be noticing things. We should be paying attention to things. We're never just asleep, plugged in, just being lulled into that.
No, we're being shaped by everything.
Right.
Yeah.
But to be a true ambassador of Christ, to be a person who is actually primarily a member of the kingdom of heaven and not of the city, to be in the city of God, not the city of man, is to be a person who, amidst whatever, you're primarily operating from that Christian perspective. And that transforms the most mundane thing into the most profound thing.
Yeah.
At all levels, literally at all levels. Like, you're either, oh my goodness, I've got to go to work again. Oh, it's another day, another dollar. Or my work is a place peopled with souls that ring on forever. And I have, amidst the work, there's always a work beneath the work. And there's an opportunity for me to reflect Christ, to be love, to care for people in a way that is lasting.
Yeah.
And to be about that particular mission, in spite of whatever I've got to do on my spreadsheet or whatever I've got to do, whatever else. We're always double agents. There's always another mission beneath whatever the other mission is, and that gives life meaning.
That's so good, dude. I'm trying to think of just this idea of manhood and this topic that they're bringing up here and how we're trying to dissect it a little bit. But I'm looking at this idea of, we become what we behold. So when I was, 15, 16, 17, 18, there are certain men I was looking up to, and I want that characteristic of how they provide. I want that characteristic of how they play with their kids, interact with them, talk to them. Like, I saw certain dads and I saw certain men that I was like, oh, I love that characteristic, right? And I do feel like there's like this hero gap or this like man gap in our world right now where young men are going, who can I look to when it comes to, just being theologically minded? Who can I look to when it comes to how to be a good husband, how to be a good dad? Like, I feel like there's like these gaps. So for example, like, let's be honest, you have like the Andrew Tate that is saying so many things right now that people are attracted to. Like, it is scratching a certain itch. It is like, I want to be this warrior and like provider, protector. Or you have a Chris Williamson who's sharing things, and it's maybe like strong man yet poetic in nature in some ways, and the strong philosopher, the bodybuilding philosopher. You kind of have that. But I guess I'm looking to try to say, hey, men, like, who you behold is who you'll become like. So what you take in, like what you go, man, I'm listening to hours of this podcaster. I'm reading this book by this author. I almost just want to say, hey, just be very wise with who you're like beholding. And I'd say, look at the person of Jesus. Yeah. I think the greatest man we could model and look to is saying, I want to see Jesus, who's the Lion of the tribe of Judah, but he's also very approachable. The one who will come back, ruling and reigning on that white horse, King of Kings, Lord of Lords. He's that warrior, but he's also that sacrificial lamb, and I guess I want to see Jesus in every kind of, not just the Gospels, the pre-incarnate, the self-existent Jesus, the eternal Jesus in the Gospels, Jesus in Revelation. Like, I want to know who he is and what he's like. And I'm saying that because as we're trying to like define manhood, like, how do I have this meekness, this power yet under control? He's gentle and lowly and meek. But also he's that provider, protector, that one that says, I'm not okay with sin being in the house of God. We need to end this. So I guess I'm looking at like who we are listening to right now as a generation sometimes does concern me. we either have like men apologizing for being men, and you kind of have this over like, let me just first and foremost apologize for all the bad things men have done. Or you can have men who disregard what people are saying, you disregard scripture, disregard like real cares in this world. And I guess I want to look to like, okay, but what is Jesus, like what example does he leave us of how to love, how to serve, how to give, how to be generous, how to be sacrificial, obviously. But I just feel like there's this gap, and I don't know, I'm kind of looking at this going, man, I want men to like start reading about Jesus, be curious about Jesus, like go to scriptures in that way. There's no greater example that I've ever had than the person of Jesus. But I don't know, I'm encouraged by this conversation, but also I know it's like we diagnose problems, but we don't always give the prognosis. Like, well, what is the solution then? Like, well, then where do I turn? And I just think that's what the disciples asked Jesus. Like, where else can we go? You alone have the words of eternal life. You know, I do feel like men are kind of going, where else can we go? And I'm saying there's nowhere else you can go for a better description of how to live as a man than the person of Jesus.
That's a phenomenal point. I think inarguably Jesus is the greatest man to have ever lived, and I don't even think that very many non-Christians would dispute that. I think that as a matter of the impact that he had, the teachings that he gave, the life that he lived, holistically and at every level, I think that Jesus is. It would be hard to argue for a better man ever. And I'm I believe that as a Christian that he's a lot more than just the greatest man ever. Yes. But I think even I would love to even have a conversation with Chris, like who tops Jesus in terms of the way that he operated, the things that he said. I think it'd be very, very hard to do that.
Yeah.
And obviously there's good reasons for that. He's without sin. I mean, to mention one.
Yeah.
But I love what you're saying. Let's we become like who we behold. Even if you're not a Christian and you're listening to this, behold Jesus. Look to Jesus as an example of what a man is like. And I think you will start to find that there are some really unexpected secrets to his way of things. And one of them would be that real, true life comes after death. That real strength comes after weakness. And that is what he also calls people into, not to shortcut it and to pull yourself up by your bootstraps and to double down and to add on more plates, but to acknowledge the weakness that you do have. For surely, unless a grain is put into the ground, it cannot come out and bear much fruit. Right? Like it cannot, there cannot be that true flowering that we all desire unless there is first a death. And that is at the core of Christianity. Christ died and was resurrected, but Christ literally also calls every person, every man to die to themselves, to actually to be crucified with Christ, so that is central to Christianity. That is the secret. I believe that is really the I'm not saying secret in some kind of Gnostic, esoteric way, but I think a unique, deep, powerful aspect of Christianity that is not often, not always understood.
Yeah.
That in order to go high, you have to first go low. That you have to, like a camel entering into a city, you have to stoop down low and go under that eye of the needle, bowing down, going low. Humble thyself in the sight of the Lord, and he will lift you up. And I think that there's something in that that's actually really, really powerful and really amazing, and is very counterintuitive to leveling up. And there's like a stoicism embedded within a lot of the manosphere today. And interestingly, Christianity sits kind of as a strange bedfellow to that stoicism, but with this unique exception. It's not just power of the will, suffer and become strong type of stoicism, but it is die and be willing to die in order that you might truly live type of stoicism. But that all happens in connection to the person of Jesus and in a compatibilistic way. By his stripes we're healed. Because he died first and then he calls us to die, is it the case that when we obey him and say, have your way with me, here's all of my sin upon you. Give me your power upon myself. Give me, what do you mean when you say that in you is life abundant? What do you mean when you say that your yoke is easy and your burden is light? What do you mean when you say that if we abide in him and he abides in us, that we can do all things in John chapter 15? What do you mean? I want to know more. Teach me your ways. And so that's all that I'm saying is I love what you just said, that the greatest man is Jesus and he's the one who we should behold. And I think that any person who's willing to explore that path of masculinity and step in that direction, all I'm really trying to say is I think there's a lot of treasure buried along the way that is to be discovered, and that is a lot more than just a formula for the good life. There's a lot of real power, and there's a lot of surprises along that path.
Yeah, so if you want to be a man that's a fulfilled man, a successful man, a healthy man, it's not just do whatever you want. It is deny the self. Deny yourself, take up your cross, follow Jesus. I love what Paul said. I want to lay hold of that of which Christ laid hold of me. Like Paul's like, Jesus chose me and laid hold of me for a reason. I want to lay hold of that reason. So God chose you. He snapped you. He pulled you out of darkness into his light. He called you out of being an insecure man and to being a man of God. Like he called you out of that. So Paul's desire is, I want to lay hold of why did Jesus lay hold of me? Why did he, blind me that day on the road to Damascus? You might look at your life and go, why did Jesus save me? Why does Jesus love me? And Paul would say, well, that's part of this beautiful journey of manhood, is finding that reason, like lay hold of that of which Christ laid hold of you. So why did he interrupt my life? Why did he change my course and my direction? And I do think there's something really sweet when Christians go, I want to find that out. Like I want that direction. So it's Paul in Ephesians 4 when he says, walk worthy of the calling to which you are called. And I do think it's like, well, how do I do want to walk worthy, but what is that calling to which I'm called? And it's Peter saying, make your calling and election sure. Like, okay, make sure you're saved, make sure you're born again. So your election, but make your calling sure. And so again, how do I walk worthy of that calling? And so we could zoom out really quick and say the broad calling we all have is to know God. Like that's John 17, right? This is his prayer of eternal life, that we may know you and your son whom you sent. So in some ways I could zoom out, but I want to say, I do believe there's a specific reason as well. Like there's this general revelation and special or specific revelation of scriptures. I also kind of view that for God's will. Like there's yes, why are we here? Yes, to know God, to enjoy him forever. Sure. Like why do we exist? Like, yeah, of course, to love Jesus, love others. Sure. But I also think there's a special or specific reason. And I think that's part of this beautiful journey of just like I'm married to my wife and I daily talk to her, daily go, I want to know her desires of the day. I want to know what she's thinking. I want to know what she's daydreaming about. I want to know where do you want to go next with the kids? Like I want to know her each day. I can't be like, I knew her 17 years ago when we got married. Like no, I want to know her will today. And I think there's this beautiful journey with the Lord where you're like, I know why you saved me, Lord, to participate in the kingdom, to be a kingdom builder, to reach the lost. Like we kind of get these general terms, but it's like, no, I actually want to know, in the intimacy, in the secret place of prayer, in the secret place where with the Lord in the word, like, Lord, why did you lay hold of me? And what is it today? So that's why I think when Jesus says to deny yourself, pick up the cross daily, like this idea of men and women, but we're talking about men right now, of men following Jesus. There's this beautiful, I need the manna to be picked up today, meaning they were never supposed to take the heavenly bread, manna, for the next day, not enough for the next, just the day itself. And I need to daily go, Lord, what do you have for me today? And you laid hold of me, and I want to lay hold of that reason. And I just think that is the quest, that is the journey, that is the last frontier of just daily being in fellowship with God and Lord, what is it you have for me today? Here I am, Lord, send me. And it's not this one-time thing people say. Sometimes but I do think there's this daily exploration with the Lord of Lord, I have another day that you've given me. This is the day that you have made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. What do you have for me today? And I can't think of a more exciting unknown. In my Christian faith, there's been so many unknowns that I'm grateful for. I'm grateful for certain phone calls I got, interactions I've had, And that's like, as you follow Jesus, you'll have like these unknown things that he'll lead you to. And it is the greatest quest, picking up your cross daily and following him. So walk worthy of that calling, discover that calling, lay hold of the reason of why Christ laid hold of you. I think that is the ultimate call of man. I want to lay hold of that. Yeah.
Pilgrim's Progress is an amazing book. It's how I actually got saved.
Really? I didn't know that.
The story of it.
Like John Bunyan, or yeah,
John Bunyan.
Yeah.
My interaction with the story was actually through a cartoon version of it. I was 6 years old.
Yeah.
But that story really is amazing because right along with what you just said, it explains the fact that the Christian life is this journey, and there will be all kinds of setbacks and different characters who come along the way and muddy the message, and you're going to get sidetracked, and you're going to get confused, and you're going to be locked up in the prison with a giant, and you're going to be tricked by this character. And there's going to be all these ways in which you're going to have to continuously remember that first love, and so it is a journey is the point. It's a day by day thing. It's like you were just saying, it's not a one time, once for all, okay, I'm there now. It's like when I watched that cartoon, this is going to sound funny, but at the end of it, there's this depiction of a rival, and it's these golden shores, and the ships are setting out on these golden shores, and it's the most beautiful, and it's probably just a corny cartoon.
I think I've seen this cartoon, by the way. But yeah.
You know how Scripture says that eternity is in our hearts. That ending of that cartoon captured my heart with eternity for the first time ever. And it sounds so over the top, but I really was like, oh my word, I am experiencing a longing, a joy. There's something happening right now that's so profound that is like making me understand the end destination of my life, and like the basically that heaven is real and it's amazing and it's worth it. And then, but then you remember, so Christian had that, he's in the city, and there's this whole story. And so it's just exactly what your point is it's just, I think if you're a Christian or not, and you don't have that, if you don't have a vision of heaven in your heart, then it's, I think, easy to get sidetracked and easy to like be deluded and distracted and diverted in different ways, or just for Christianity to become a platitude that just sits on the shelf. Yeah, I'm a Christian, but like really I'm doing this. And I think that we all have to have that sense of life is really short, and those eternal shores are really right there.
Yeah.
And heaven is 100% real, and no mind, not a single one, has ever conceived of what is in store for those, for us. No mind has ever conceived. And that's a really exciting thought. And I think we just get again, I keep talking about the Matrix and the illusion and all this stuff, but I really, speaking for myself as well, it's so easy to be bogged down with temporary happinesses, short-term goals, all these things. Again, none of them are bad, but they must be infused with those golden shores, and they must be infused with the reality of heaven. They must be infused with the reality of God. We have to basically, in short, know where we're going in order for any step that we take tomorrow, the next day, to make any sense. This is what I'm going back to with this. Like, we need to know where we're from, what we're for, and where we're going in order to be able to operate in a meaningful way at all. People that are plagued with meaninglessness, it's like, no wonder. If I'm sorry, but I just 2-minute soapbox here, but like, honestly, if you've been told your entire life that you're just a higher evolved monkey, that you're not intended to exist, that your existence will end immediately upon death, and that nothing you've ever done in your entire life will matter at all the second that you die, go figure that people are struggling to find it within themselves to go to work.
Yes.
Go figure that people are finding it very difficult to commit to a single sex partner. Like, give me a break. Like, if that is the story that you believe to be true about yourself, I'm surprised that more people aren't. I'm surprised that there aren't more, like, and more. I mean, mute that out, editor. Our editor Parker, love you, bro. But like, you know, for the sake of YouTube, whatever. But like, my point is, I'm surprised that people are not even worse than they already are, even more depressed than they already are. If you actually believe that lie of this is what you are, just contrive your own meaning. Come up with some arbitrary reason for your existence and go with that. Like, go figure, man. Like, go figure. People are falling apart right now. And I think that what I'm trying to just cast a vision for, paint a picture for, is, I guess I'll just be really short here. One, it's not arbitrary. There is actually eternal, amazing creator God who creates every single person, I love what you said, in a totally unique capacity. Your DNA is not the same as mine. That's a weird thing in and of itself. Our fingerprints are other clues. Our fingerprints are totally unique. So every single soul, every single body, every single person that exists is a one-of-a-kind person, which tells me something about that person. You're special. There's a reason for your life specifically. You're not just a number. Like, your individual existence matters and was designed by a creator who loves you. So ask him, what is his intended purpose for your life? He writes better stories than we do. He writes the best stories of all, and there's a specific story he has for your life.
So good.
And you get free will, by the way. You're not a robot, but he has an intention. He has a story for your life. This is where purpose comes from.
That's so good. I agree, man. We fell for the lie. We fell for the lie that God is withholding good from us. You know, do you not know that the day you eat this, you'll be like him? Like, we fell for the lie that God is holding back something from us. And I just feel like that's Satan's first lie, and that's his lie still today. Like, God, think about this. God, there's man, there's woman, naked and unashamed. There's a job. They're governing. They're stewarding. There's work. Work is pre-fall. Right? Not sweat from the brow type of work, but there is stewardship and work. There's purpose. So it's man, women, intimacy with each other, intimacy with God. And Satan stripped all of that away. And I feel like the whole idea of the Bible is getting back to that. Like, man and woman who are made in the image of God, getting back to intimacy with God. You know, and it is funny to me. So I think about, like, manhood. And I think about the story we tell ourselves. I'd say, men, go get a wife. Go love her. Go serve her. Go steward things together with her, work together, enjoy each other, enjoy the Lord. Like, it's funny how, like, think about what the enemy's been doing the last 20, 30, 40, 50 years in the West, redefining marriage, redefining manhood and womanhood, stealing away that just beauty of men and women, both made in the image of God, not one greater, not one lesser, but yet there's different roles and capabilities and capacities. And just the idea of there's this intimacy they have with each other and God. And Satan's like, but don't you know there's something else missing? And, like, don't you know that God's withholding good from you? And I feel like that is the lie we're still being told. Like, so men, go get that wife. Two shall become one. Let's go. You know, and, like, enjoy the Lord together and enjoy each other. And I feel like God's, like, created this beautiful life for us to enjoy, but we're still kind of listening to that whisper of the enemy that maybe there's something else. There's nothing else. There's nothing, like, it's man and woman in a garden enjoying God. I would say let's get back to that. That's how creation ends. It's a city, garden city, like man and women with God, enjoying God. We're going back to that garden-like state. We're going back to Eden, but now in this, like, kind of heavenly city state.
And if the cross of Christ is the linchpin of history, and if Jesus himself is the example of what a true man is like, and if his kingdom takes on a new beginning in his resurrection, and if that's the model, if that's the pattern that's bringing about the new creation that you're talking about, then think about it as men become Christian men, as men follow the way of Jesus, as men are given the divine nature and are given the mind of Christ, and old things have passed away, behold, all things are becoming new. Think about how that's going to change society as that continues to happen. In the sense that, how are women going to feel about that? Imagine a society filled with more and more people that actually are walking in the way of Jesus. Women are going to love that. That's going to be the best thing ever. It's going to dissolve all the weird gender battles and all the battle of the sexes, and it's going to make it a lot easier for women to be like, it's weird because, like, the toxic masculinity that I saw on the college campus, I don't see anymore. I'm now around Christian men and in my church community or whatever, and they're actually really kind, and they don't objectify me.
Dude, isn't it, by the way, this is so good.
Right? Like,
yes. Because when Adam first saw Eve, what did he do? He sang. There's like a poem. Bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh. there's a sense of like he celebrated her difference. He celebrated the similarities and yet differences. And I think what we do, we have demonized, we have pitted each other, we have othered each other, even in like the sexes. It is so weird, this battle of the sexes,
odd.
And like this hierarchy that we've tried to like create on either end. And we're going, no, bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh. Now, obviously that's referring specifically to your wife, not just every woman ever, but it's like this, you're valuing the difference. And yet obviously the two shall become one.
Yeah. And I know we're coming to a close here.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to tap here. Last thought. People who are not familiar enough with the Bible might be thinking in the back of their mind right now, what are you talking about, bro? The Bible is the book that says that men lord over women and that women are to submit to men. The Bible is the book filled with chauvinism and filled with patriarchy. And to that person, I would say, keep reading and read more and read between the lines and read commentary and read in order to understand the cultural understanding and read to understand paradigm shifts and keep reading. Don't just be offended and walk away. Because if you actually understand the one passage in particular that I'm thinking of that is so offensive to so many people and it's a total misunderstanding is the idea where it says, wives submit to your husbands. But what does it say in that same passage?
Submit one to another.
Submit one to another. And then where else is I want to make sure I don't get this wrong.
Ephesians 5, yeah.
Where does it say? Is it also in Ephesians 5 where it also says husbands love your wives?
Of course, yeah.
As Christ loved the church.
Of course, yes.
That's the same.
And how?
That's the same passage, right?
Exact same.
Okay, so that's it.
Yeah.
So that I'm glad I didn't get that wrong because I thought that was all right in that same thought together. And in light of that being the case, give me a break.
Yeah.
What you need to do if you're offended by that passage is you need to understand how Christ loved the church. Because there is no greater sacrifice that can be provided. There is no greater surrender, giving, literally being beaten to a bloody pulp for the sake of her.
Yeah.
And that is how men are called to treat women, to completely lay down their lives for the other.
Yes.
So there's nothing that is being asked that women should do that men are not asked to do, even more so. But I really do think it's a mutual, it's a race to the bottom in order to lift the marriage up to the top is really what I think that it is. In the same way that it says that the last will be first and the first will be last. It's a complete inversion of all of our fleshly inclinations in the way that the cultural Marxists want to pit oppressors and oppressed against each other. It really is. It's like an amazing antidote to all of that nonsense where it's like actually know who can outlove, who can outserve, who can outgive, and then the combined one fleshness of the two is actually elevated to higher and higher heights the more that we actually train ourselves to not be selfish. We actually the more that you give, the more that you receive, etc. And we're young and married and we're all a work in process, but that is, I believe, the biblical antidote to the battle of the sexes is the way of Jesus in the context of a marriage.
So good. Step it up, man. Let's go. Be like Jesus.
Yes.